Welcome to Appium Training by Wisdom Trainings. We had seen how to make a single script which could work on multiple browsers last time. Now uh, the next thing is that we have to go and identify the elements. Okay, so I'll make a new package known as day 4. Alright, and out here I'll talk about how to identify elements. This was the program single script which could actually go and work on multiple browsers. Okay, I'll copy it under day 4. Fine, I could change the browser name from here and it could easily open the browser, take me to the website and interact with it. Now interacting with the web page, what do you mean by it? It basically means that you have to go and identify the elements on the web page. Alright, so for example, if I go to the website, say CNN.com. Okay. Okay, now first of all, in automation, every element on the web page, okay, whether it is a button or whether it is a link, right, is known as a object or a web element. Fine, the both are same. Every link, every object, every image, whatever is there on the web page, okay, is known as a web element. You must have seen mobile developers talking to each other, and or automation testers rather, talking to each other and saying that object is not visible, or object is invisible, or object cannot be found, or web element is not found. So everything is known as an object or a web element. Fine, so if I am writing this script, okay, I'll run this script, run as Java application. Hold on, and after the browser launches, I have to go to this website CNN.com and identify elements on that web page. For that, I have to understand how Selenium works. Selenium works on the page source. If you right click on the page and go to the page source, okay, this is the HTML page source corresponding to the web page. Okay, right, you might not be able to understand much in it, but basically every website, any website, has an HTML page source. This is the server response, the actual response from the server. Okay, and you have, when you are working with Selenium, you really need to know or learn that how can you understand this HTML page source. Okay, for example, I go and right click on Chrome. I'll talk about Chrome browser first, that how you can investigate the web page and the elements on Chrome. Okay, so when you suppose you have the home link over here, okay, when you right click on it, you'll get the option inspect in Chrome. You click on this and you will have the Chrome inspector window. This is known as Chrome inspector window opening up. Okay, there will be an arrow. Okay, you click on this arrow and then wherever you move the mouse, you can inspect that element. Okay, suppose I move my mouse over, I'll just shift over to the Docker view, that is dock side, dock to bottom. Right, if I select this will come at the bottom side. So if I just move my mouse over home now, so it will it's highlighting this particular link. Okay, it will highlight the link or the HTML page source in the page source. Okay, this is the HTML page source. It will highlight the HTML page source corresponding to the link. Okay, this is the home link, and you know, every element in HTML has a tag name. For example, over here the tag name is div. For the link, the tag name is anchor A, and every tag, okay, every tag, right, for example, this is the tag div. A tag always starts with a conical bracket. Every tag can have 0 or more than 0 attributes, like ID is an attribute, class is an attribute over here, directory is an attribute. Okay, just a minute. Right, so you have got tags and attributes in the HTML page source, and every element has its own unique HTML page source. For example, if I look at the search option on the top, this one, it's an input tag. Fine, this one, this is the input tag, and there are many attributes to it, like ID is one attribute, type is one attribute, autocomplete is one attribute. So there can be many attributes to a tag. With the help of these tags and attributes, we identify the elements. Okay, now how do we do that? Fine, let's see. Okay, what I'll do is that I'll just make a small file, a matrix, which will help you understand. Just a minute. I'll make an Excel file under day 4. Known as WebElements. We'll see different types of WebElements. Okay, I'll just make few column names. Element name. What is the tag name? And every element has few attributes. Some of them are mandatory attributes. Some of them are optional attributes. Fine. Okay. Now, just a minute. My Excel file has hanged. Okay, it's not responding. Just a minute, I'm sorry. Okay, it crashed. Just a minute. I didn't save it either. Fine, I'm sorry, I'll just make it again. Right, so you have the element name, tag name, mandatory attribute, and optional attribute. Okay, so the complete game of identifying elements depend on these. It actually depends on this, that how well you understand these concepts. Okay, for example, right, if you say what kind of elements are there on the web page, okay, we have got text box. Okay, then we have got, say, a radio button. We have got a checkbox. Right, Then we have a drop down as well. At times we have links. Fine, we have regular text on the web page. We have image on the web, the regular the regular images which are there on the web page. Okay, then we have got buttons. Fine, and look, most of the times the HTML page comprises of these kind of elements. Fine, apart from this you have frames and all other things which I will talk about later on, not right now. Okay, but these are some of the visible components which are there on a web page. Okay, now if I suppose I'll go to this web page, it's got most of them. Just a minute. I'll just click on the sign in link. Right, so this is the username and password field over here. Okay, this web page, suppose I investigate the username field. Okay, and I move the mouse to the top. It's an input type whose ID is login1. Right, if you look at the page source, this is the tag name input for the text field. Right, so in case of text fields, the tag name will always be input. Okay, right, if you look at the checkbox, for example, if I look at this checkbox, this is also an input tag whose type is checkbox, and these are the other attributes. For a checkbox also, the tag name is input. Okay, and I know from my experience that all the buttons and the radio buttons, these four elements have the input tag name. Okay, but the only difference is that there is a mandatory attribute with every one which will always be present. Okay, in case of a text field, the mandatory attribute is type equals to text. This will always be present in case of a text field. Okay, in case of a radio button, or for example here is a checkbox, in case of a checkbox, the type will always be checkbox. This will always be present in case of a checkbox. In case of a radio button, type will be radio. Okay, and in case of a normal button, okay, on the web page, type is button, or sometimes it is submit as well, but it's okay. Right, so you have got these four elements which have the same tag name, but the mandatory attributes they differ. Okay, and optional attributes are always there, they can be there. Okay, and generally the optional attributes are ID, name, or class. These can be there with any of these. Okay, if an element is having an attribute known as ID or a name, then it is really easy to identify it. Okay, for example, over here I have taken an easier example. We have this element whose ID is remember checkbox and name is also remember. So if you have these kinds of attributes in an element, then it is really easy to identify the element. Okay, but every time you don't get it. Fine, if you talk about a link, for example, this is the forgot password link. Okay, most of you must be knowing the links are always under the tag name anchor. Okay, I'll just increase the font size here. The links on any web page like this create a new account link, they are always under the anchor tag A. Okay, right. And there is a mandatory attribute href which points towards the URL which will open when you click on the link. The href attribute holds the URL which will open when you click on the link. Okay. The regular text on the web page, for example the text like keep me signed in. Okay, the text which can be highlighted with the cursor. Okay, the regular text which can be highlighted with the cursor can have any tag name. Sometimes it is in para tag, sometimes in div tag, okay, sometimes in span. So there is no definition for this. Okay, the text can be in any tag. Alright, and there is no mandatory attribute for the text. Alright, image. If you talk about an image, for example, this is an image, rediff mail. This is an image. The image okay, this actually they kept in a div. Alright, generally the images are not in a div. Hold on. Yeah, for example, if you look at this image will always have the tag name img. Okay, this image over here has the img tag. Okay, and there is a source attribute. This source attribute holds the URL from which the image is loaded. Okay, right. So the source attribute is a mandatory attribute. If I just copy this URL, you will see that if I just copy this URL and open it up, this image will come up. Fine. So you have the image tag img for image, and there is a mandatory attribute known as source for it. Drop down has the tag name select. If you have sometimes there is a country drop down or whatever it is, it has a tag name select. There is no mandatory attribute to it. Okay, and these three optional attributes can be there with every object on the web page. ID, name, class. ID and name are supposed to be unique, but class is not unique to one element. Multiple elements can have the same class attribute. Okay, what I mean to say is that you have this username field, the attributes ID over here and name are unique to these fields. ID and name are supposed to be unique to the elements. Okay, but sometimes there is a class attribute. The class attribute is not unique. Multiple elements can have the same class. For example, we have a live example here. There are two divisions. Both the division tags have the class cell. Okay, right. So you cannot say that elements having the class attribute is not unique to the element. Alright, fine. So this is the tag and attribute matrix. Okay, and this will help us to understand how the page source works, how the elements works, how they are classified. Fine. Now if you go to the website of Selenium, okay, you go to selenium.dev, and you go to API documentation. Now in this you will find, when you scroll down, you will find an interface known as WebElement. WebElement is an internal interface. Okay, I hope you know by now what interface is. This interface represents a generic HTML element. Okay, all these elements, they fall under WebElement interface. Okay, it represents a generic element on the web page. Okay, and it's got functions which can interact with those elements. For example, a function like click, or a function like get location, which will give you the location of the element. Alright, get the size of the element, get the text of the element, is displayed, submit. So there are different functions in this WebElement interface which can help you extract these web elements. So technically in Selenium these are known as web elements. Okay, right, and this WebElement interface helps you to interact with them. Now how do you write the code? Okay, right, if you look at the interface WebDriver, then WebDriver interface has got these implementing classes, all the driver classes they implemented, and there is a function in it, find element. It will find the first web element using the given method. Okay, right, so there are two things in this function, right, three things rather. The find element command will go and find the element. There is a by class reference. This by class has the locator strategy, that means the strategy with which you locate the elements. I'll tell you, hold on. And this function finds the element on the web page and returns the reference of the web element interface. Okay, now what it is, what am I trying to tell you, I'll just explain. First of all, understand there is a class known as by. Okay, there is a class known as by. This by class has got the mechanism used to locate the elements within a document. Okay, document means the page source. Okay, and you have by ID function over here, by the link text you can recognize, by the name you can recognize. Every function in the class is static. You can call it directly with the class name. So basically what we do is that, in a nutshell, in the code we write over here driver dot, you get the function find element. Okay, right, and this find element function will find the element on the web page with some criteria, with some mechanism. That mechanism is specified by the by class. By which criteria you want to find the element? You have all the functions in the by class, by the name, ID, link text. Okay, I want to find it with the ID. You can call the ID function directly because it is static. Okay, in case of our example, which is the Rediff login, we have the username field over here. The ID is login1, right, so you can give the unique ID over here. So this will go and find the username field on the web page and return you the web element corresponding to it. You import the web element interface, right, you move the mouse over the error and import it. Fine, and you write a username dot, you will get all the functions which will be helpful to interact with this element. Okay, I'll write the function send keys. Send keys function in WebElement is used to type into the element. Okay, so I'll just type ABC and run the program. So when you run it, right, you see that it opens CNN. Hold on, my mind was also concentrated on something else, right? So I had the wrong URL. Okay, still I have the wrong one. This is the right URL. We will go to this URL. Right. You see that it prints ABC, right, or it types ABC in the text field, right, and this is the title of the web page being printed by this line. Fine. Now similarly you can interact with the username field as well. You can write a driver dot find element by which criteria, not the username, the password field. If you look at the password field, it's got an ID, it's also got a name is password, PASSWD. So I can maybe use the name over here. Name option is also there in by class. By the name password, we can use this and you can get the web element password. Fine. And you can write password dot send keys something like this. So when you run this, it will go and enter the username and password. You see that? Okay, right. Now similarly, this is the button, the sign in button. Hold on. If you look at the sign in button, again I told you that the buttons will always have the tag name input and the name is proceed. Fine. So I can write the code over here, that is driver dot find element by the name proceed, and this will be web element button, and then you can write button dot, you can use the function click. In the web element there is a click function. Okay, so this will enter the username and password and click on the button. This was the easiest scenario which I just took with you. Fine. Now hold on. And it clicked on the button and I get the error message, of course. Fine. Now the thing is, to interact with one element I am writing two pieces of code. Okay, to interact with one element I am writing two lines of code. So instead of this, okay, instead of writing like this, I'll comment it. I can write in one line as well, and most of you must have seen this. That is driver dot find element login 1 dot send keys ABC. The execution starts from the left side. first the element is extracted, and then on that element the send keys function is fired. Okay, then you have driver.find element by the name, password, dot send keys xyz. Fine. And you have driver.find element by the name, proceed, dot click. Okay, so you can write in one line. The execution starts from the left side and goes till the right side. Fine. So when you run this code, it opens the browser, and the output will be the same. Alright. Now there are a few things which come in the mind. First of all, what if the element is not found? What if the element with this ID is not there on the web page? Okay. And what if there are multiple elements with the same ID? There are multiple elements with the same locator. We call this as locator ID name. All these things under the by class are locators. We will study about each of them. Fine. What if the element is not found, or there are multiple elements with the same locator, that means the same ID or same name? And how do you work with multiple browsers? I just used Chrome. Okay, what about the other browsers? Fine. Now first of all, if the element is not found, for example, I give an ID over here which is not existing. Okay, I give the ID over here which is not existing, and when I run the code, it won't be able to find the element, and you will get an exception. Immediately you will get an exception known as no such element exception. That is, no such element, unable to locate the element with this ID. Okay, so you get the no such element exception. But at times, you know what happens is that the element takes a little while to appear on the web page. There are some Ajax controls, maybe you have to wait for some time. Okay, and then the element appears on the web page. Many times in the applications it happens like this. Okay, so at times people say that fine, you can, I've seen they put the code like thread.sleep for 5 seconds. Thread.sleep for 5 seconds basically means that go and pause the program for 5 seconds. Okay, whether the element becomes visible or not, okay, this line will actually pause the program for 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds it will resume and the next line will be executed. So if the element comes up in the 5 seconds, it's fine. If it doesn't come, then again you will get an exception. But this is not a dynamic wait. If the element is coming in the first second, then also it is waiting for 5 seconds. Okay, suppose in the second the element, it becomes visible on the web page, but still this will pause the program for 5 seconds, and every time before detecting any element I will have to write thread.sleep maybe I'll have to write it multiple times in the program, right? So what we do is that we use another thing known as implicit wait. It's a global timeout. As soon as you open your browser, out here browser is opened. Okay, as soon as you open the browser, you give an implicit wait, that is driver dot manage dot timeouts dot implicitly wait. Okay, implicitly wait means that go for a default wait of maybe 20 seconds. You write over here time unit dot seconds. Okay, you write over here driver dot manage dot timeouts dot implicitly wait for 20 seconds. So what will this do? This will, first of all, this line is applicable to all the driver.findElement commands. This is a global wait. Okay, this is a global wait which is applicable to all driver.findElement commands. Okay, and this is dynamic. Whenever you will fire driver.findElement command, if the element is not found, it will wait maximum 20 seconds. It will keep on polling the web page for 20 seconds. If the element is found in the say 4th second, it will use it and move forward. But it will not mandatorily wait for 20 seconds for every element. Okay, for example, if I just run it normally with the right ID, you will see that everything will run at a perfect pace. The browser will open, it will go to the website, and the regular username and password will be entered. Okay, because the elements were being detected. Okay guys, I just saw it now. Is my voice not clear? I saw the chat right now. It's clear, right? Okay, I'm sorry. So out here, if I give an ID which is not there on the web page and run the program, then this will wait for 20 seconds. This will not throw an error immediately because I have given a timeout of 20 seconds. This will keep on polling the web page. If the element is found in a few seconds, it will use it and move forward. But after 20 seconds, you see that you get the exception, no such element exception. Alright, and in the exception trace, you also get the line number. If you scroll down, this will tell you single script.java line number 58. If you click on it, it will highlight the line as well. Okay, so if the element is not found, then it's fine. You can use the implicit wait, and it's always a good practice to give the implicit wait just after opening the browser. We do it just after opening the browser because this is the global wait. Alright, now the next question: what if same elements have the same locator? If two elements on the web page have the same ID. First of all, this should not be happening. IDs are supposed to be unique. If two elements have the same ID, then you should tell your developer as well that something wrong is going on. Okay, but still, if two elements have the same ID, then you know, Selenium, what it does is that when it loads the web page and it finds the elements on the web page, it finds the element from left side to the right side. That is, it scans the page like this and it goes down. Okay, right. Now if there are two elements on the web page which have the same ID, say one is over here and other one is over here, okay, then what will Selenium choose? Selenium will choose the first one. It will ignore the next one. How will you choose the next one? We will actually talk about it later on. But right now understand that if two elements have the same ID, and the Selenium will use the first one. So driver.findElement command will use the first element. Okay. And how do you work with multiple browsers? Suppose I have Chrome and then I have Firefox. I have to make the same script run on Firefox as well. Look, understand the thing that for every browser there is a page source, and page source in 99% of the applications is same for all the browsers. This is the response from the server. This cannot be different for all the browsers. You can inspect the username field in Firefox as well. Right click on the field. In Firefox also you will get the option inspect element, and then in element will be highlighted. ID is same in Firefox as well. The page source remains same. ID is login1. Page source remains the same. So all you need to do is that you just need to change the browser name over here to Mozilla and run the code, and this will open up the Mozilla browser. And take you to Rediff Mail. Okay, so just need to change the browser. Alright, and the page source will act accordingly. Fine. Okay, any questions from anyone? Right. Now the next thing is that how do you go ahead and identify the elements when there is no ID or name? Not every element will have an ID or a name. Okay, for example, if I go and investigate this Rediff Mail image, or suppose this link ITTF suspense, if I look at this link, this is the link. This link has got no ID or a name. Not every element on the web page will have it. So what we do is that in that case we use something known as XPath or CSS selector. If you look at by dot, hold on, you can use XPath. There is an option for XPath or something known as CSS selector as well. Okay, now we need to understand what XPath or CSS selector is now, because most of the times you don't get ID or a name. 50% of the times you get it, 50% of the times you don't get it. Okay, so XPath or CSS selector is nothing but, you can say it's the address of the element on the web page. Like you have an address, some street name, some house name. Okay, so similarly this is the address of the element. So we won't do this today, we'll do this tomorrow. I'll talk about XPaths in detail. Fine, I will mail you the recordings as well of the class.